Are we live?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello and welcome, Rangers. I'm Joe here from East Macoa Stan.
Hello and greetings.
Here, we'll just move to the side a little so you can be visible. And today we're streaming about Zordon of Eltar, the great mentor of the Power Rangers and the goody-goody who's sworn to all that is good and decent. Basically everything that Lord Zed is sworn against. Just to start with, in terms of linguistics, it's interesting that both Zed and Zordon's names start with the same letter. It is. We're supposed to, I think, kind of look at them as kind of opposite sides of the coin to an extent. One good, one evil. That said, disclaimer, I don't approve of, I don't really like the comic where Zed is apparently from Eltar and is of the same race as Zordon.
Yeah.
The idea is that we're supposed to look at them as basically mirror images and almost the same, I think, when I don't really agree with that. If you like that kind of thing where they're even more like they portray them even more closely, it can be interesting. Like I get why people would like it. I just found it just, no, I don't really care for it. I like the idea that they're different races, but that's just me. Zordon, from the very word go, is a very active force in universe. He doesn't just wait for Rita to launch her first attack. He just immediately says, Rita's escaped. Alpha, choose 5 teenagers with attitude. And Alpha throws a tantrum because, no, not teenagers. Yes, Alpha. And Alpha selects them, teleports them in. It is interesting that it's actually Alpha, I think, who chose the Rangers, the initial Rangers. I wonder what the selection process was. I genuinely do. Because while Zordon is overseeing things, and while he is aware of the different Rangers to a great degree, I wonder if we shouldn't look at the initial selection as Alpha's choice, which gives Alpha a lot more agency in universe. And I like that idea that Alpha should have, I think it's Alpha 5 or 6
at this time. It was Alpha 5.
Okay, thank you for that. Because I know Alpha 6 crops up later. But Alpha 5 should be looked at as having a lot of agency in these early episodes. In that regard, he was the one who chose them. Zordon was the one who began to prune the tree and kind of start watering it and trying to make an apple tree out of, I guess you could say, a simple flower or flowers. It's Zordon who, however, tries to reason with the Rangers and distributes to them their power coins and their powers, trying to convince them to pick up the battle against Rita. They initially say no because, well, they're pretty freaked out and they've been teleported before a floating head. So they react pretty in a way that's to be expected. That being said, once they finally morph, they decide, okay, we'll give this a shot because, well, we're not crazy, it seems. Not unless, well, we're all having a shared delusion or episode or something. And the Rangers decide, and yes, I did a faux French accent there, or faux German accent, just for fun. Because everything must start with the letter Z with Power Rangers. I'm kidding. But afterwards, they decide to kind of follow Zordon's advice. And throughout the next few episodes, Zordon will end up, sorry, just one of my students, because I'm tutoring people in French these days as practice for teaching English later, because I'll be moving soon. So it's just asking for a textbook. I don't have the textbook yet. So I have to pay for that PDF later. which I understand the student's desperate to start, but give me a few minutes. But as for where was it? As for Zordon, it's interesting that he did develop a close relationship with most of the Rangers, but that it seems that at least for a good chunk of episode 1, he was most concerned about Kim and Tommy at a few points, and I'd even argue Zach to an extent. Because Zach often got the wrong idea about things like, oh, I should buy Angela's affection. And Zordon was trying to tell him, no, that's not the way to go. And then there was Zordon, who's like, I love how when Zach would go on a date, Zordon would try not to call him in. And then it's only when the Rangers would be pretty much with a sword at their throat or their necks stretched out over the guillotine that he'd say, all right, Zach, we really need you. I didn't want to actually call you in. I'm sorry. Come to the rescue, please. Your friends will die if you don't. And Zach would often go, oh, man, come on. Does it have to be now? Yeah, sorry. Zordon seemed very reluctant to bother Zach, showing quite a bit of sensitivity towards the fact that Zach was honestly really into Angela and whatnot. And in that regard, Zordon is playing dad there, interrupting the date to remind Zach of kind of his familial responsibilities, if reluctantly so. In turn, though, you have Kim, whom was very much in some ways a lost little girl. And we should not understate the degree to which Kim has had a hard life and the degree to which her parents' divorce affected her. And we see that Zordon throughout season 1 and 2 seems to be trying to help Kim get over her insecurities. And while he does try to help Billy with his confidence, he relies more on Billy as a student in a way. He's mentoring Billy more into the intellectual sphere and the scientific sphere. But it's really Tommy and Kim that he's really concerned about because they're the insecure, in some ways emotionally weak ones at the start. And this has to do with their underlying traumas. And this is not to say that he neglects the likes of, say, Billy, Jason, and Trini. He's obviously very good with them, with Jason's growing fears for Tommy and anger in a few episodes worrying Zordon. Zordon, I remember in one episode, tries to tell Jason, you can't, mind your temper. You need to learn to control your rage. It could prove a double-edged sword. And while Jason says, okay, he does later use his rage in battle to good effect, but on the other hand, I think the lesson was missed in a way on Jason's end. And I just think that this could have been a long extended arc across several seasons. And it might sound weird, but I kind of think that there was there should have been if they had brought Jason back in space, I think that the Zordon Jason relationship should have been the emotional heart of the season. And we could have had the two struggle and find a rapprochement, and maybe Jason would end up, the loss of Zordon would strongly affect him, so that we get a bit of the prodigal son story in a way, and then we could have Zordon kind of, this would be something that could have Divatox maybe mock Jason at one point over, and even Astronema mock Jason over the, you failed your mentor. And this could cause Jason to become enraged. But then later, we see that he's just mired in grief. With maybe in a later episode, Jason communes with Zordon's spirit, and you have this rapprochement. And maybe Jason ends up finding closure and destroying Divatox. I really did want to see Divatox die. But I kind of feel that it should be Jason or Kim or something, because she tried to do to them what the Green Ranger thing. like what Rita did with Green Ranger Tommy. But that being said, Zordon. Oh, hey there, guys. What you talking about? Zordon.
This stream is about Zordon.
Yep. Last week was Lord Zed, sworn enemy of all that is good and decent. This week it's about the guy who's all about good and decency. And we're just going to quickly recap for you, Austin McNeil. When it comes to the various Rangers, Zordon had a very unique relationship. But the main three in season 1 he seems to have focused upon were Zach, Kim, and Tommy. This having to do with Kim still reeling from the traumas of her parents' divorce, Tommy from the Green Ranger trauma, and Zach because he's struggling with being a young man in love. And Zordon's he's trying to give him space, but also trying to prod him in the right direction, trying to be a dad. And it doesn't always work well because Zach is very frustrated and really wanting to impress Angela. In turn, Zordon doesn't seem to help Billy too much out with his confidence, mostly mentoring Billy in the scientific sphere and whatnot, in regards to the morphing grid. That being said, there is obviously, from watching the movie, an observed closeness and love that's shared between Zordon and Billy. In a way, I think you can maybe say that psychologically, the Rangers often treated like Billy like the younger brother, but Zordon treated him like the eldest son. Did you notice that? Like, he always said, like, he seemed to give more responsibilities to Billy.
Because Billy seemed to thrive with more responsibility.
But the other Rangers seemed to treat Billy like a kid brother who needed protection, which...
There was an aspect of that Billy required both.
Yeah, and maybe Zordon did observe that and decided to try a different tact with Billy. Because I know, like, in the movie, in a few scenes, Billy is really... Like, you notice he's very grief-stricken at the possibility of Zordon's death. Although I think in the movie, the most affected ones were going from top to bottom, pretty much. Rocky, I think he was the most affected. He became almost a berserker for a bit. Like, he was pretty enraged. Probably, weirdly, I'd say Tommy and Kim. And then you have the rest. And they're all very, very strongly affected. But as to Jason, Zordon often tried to temper Jason's ill temper, but not always to great effect, because the more the series progressed, the more broken up over Tommy's loss of powers did Jason become, and the more his temper started to flare up and become a problem, because this was the one thing that Rita and Goldar were really poking at and poking a stick into, trying to worsen the wound. So that I actually think this should have become a long-term plot point across several seasons for Jason, so that if you had to bring him back in either Zeo or in space or whatever, have the focus be on Jason's short temper. And what this will do is it'll give Jason a great arc, and you can maybe do the prodigal son and the father type story, and you could have, like I said, I'll keep repeating it till I know it gets till people don't want me to say it. But I do think that Jason should have been the one to kill Divatox, whether in the movie or in space or something. But we truly should have seen Jason and Zordon struggle and find their place as father and son, because that relationship did not get the closure it deserved. That being said, when it comes to the other Rangers, Zordon really did a good job. Like with Kim, he didn't seem to mentor her too much as a Ranger, but rather seemed to try to mentor her emotionally. And it's the emotional mentorship I found very, very touching and moving. So that Kim, who's basically without a dad, despite having a father and stepfather, but not being close to either, seems to have really taken to Zordon as her father. Same with, well, Tommy. And, well, Tommy's a guy with an adoptive father, but Zordon's much more of a father.
He also put a lot of responsibility initially on Trini, but when she started to pull back,
he pulled back the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Trini, he was trying a different tack. Like, it might be weird, but I don't think Zordon came in knowing having all the answers. And he admits in a few episodes, I think, that he says, like, I do not know. Like, when they ask him, what should we do? That I do not know. You must look inwards, Rangers. Like, he often says stuff like that. So he admits, I don't have all the answers. But here's the thing. The great thing about Zordon, what makes him so wise and wonderful, is that he actually says, I don't know. So let's work together, son. You know, like, he's probably the greatest superhero mentor of all times. Now, I'm going to come out and say it. He is the greatest. And it has to do with the fact that he freely admits when he doesn't have the answers. But he's upfront about it. He's honest about it. He's humble. He's basically Gandalf. Like, he freely admits, I don't have all the answers, but I'll help you, and I'll... You know, like, with Trini, I don't know if he had all the answers, because Trini was really great, but then she started to pull back, and, you know, like, Zordon had to back off and try to... Like, I think he was trying to figure out how to help her, how best to be a dad. And it just... She didn't want to be a ranger eventually in universe. And Zordon had to kind of say, okay, well, that's not what's best for her. What I want for her is maybe not what she wants for herself. So I have to back off and let her figure things out on her own, which makes him such a great dad. All right. Now that sounds really awesome, because Jason definitely deserves a way better character development than what he got. I mean, he's the original Red Ranger. And with your idea about Zordon, it's very cool. Oh, thank you. And yeah, as the original OG Red Ranger, he definitely deserved better.
Yes, and for example, Zach's story was concluded.
Oh yeah, Trini, I do think it wasn't.
It's like 1 or 2 extra episodes could have.
This is probably the single greatest thing Zordon did as a mentor. I gotta highlight this. Sorry, I really like your comment, Austin McNeil, but Rob Kiersey here, yes, plus that he rebuilt Tommy's confidence. Now, rebuilding Tommy's confidence was... Well, like, remember, like, in a few episodes around, like, the quarterback episode, he's like, Tommy's almost suicidal. He's like, yeah, what's the point? Like, almost. He's like, I give up to an extent. He's on the verge of giving up, and it's Kim and Jason who tell him constantly, don't. You do contribute. We need you. But Tommy stopped believing in himself. And it's Zordon who keeps trying to prop up his confidence. And I think that we'll get to the White Ranger thing in a minute, but just to get back to McNeil's thing, sorry about that, Rob Kiersey. I think that, yeah, like, our idea is just based in the idea that Jason should have killed off at least one major villain as the OG Red Ranger. And it's just that from the word go, like, Divatox did to him what Rita did to Tommy. But here's the thing. Tommy overcame the possessed Jason relatively easily. And in that scene, like, because we rewatched the Turbo movie recently, you can see that Tommy in Kim in universe kind of seem to find peace there, both with the breakup, although it looks like they're back together. It's a weird scene, but also when Tommy, before he dons the helmet, I don't know. I kind of watched it and I thought, oh, that Green Ranger thing for the most part, you know, he's made peace. But then you got the Dino Thunder season, which reopens a wound and closes it even better. But having Jason have to deal with what Divatox violated him. I just think that needs a season. That we need to see more of. I want him to take down a major villain. Like, I want him to take down Divatox so that he gets to do what Tommy could not do with Rita. Now, while I do prefer Tommy as a character, I do think, like, we need that. And here's the thing: the cast the production crew were fans of Jason as a character.
They missed an opportunity.
Yeah. That said, not to smack talk the space season, because there were great moments in that season. It's just, I just wish that they brought in, I guess, that biblical theme of the prodigal son. Not that I want everything biblical. I'm not saying that. I just, because, like, the biblical stuff kind of ruined Hercules' Legendary Journeys and Xena. Although those were great shows in their own right. Although the Dayhawk stuff was great, it's just some of the later Archangel stuff was weird. I thought this was Greek mythology. Where did that stuff come from? But now, if people disagree, that's fine. Love what you love and whatnot. But as for building Tommy's confidence, I noticed that when, like, he also did the same thing with Zach and suddenly Billy and even Kim. With Zach, what Zordon did, like, Zach did start losing confidence in regards to girls, in particular Angela, because he really loved Angela. And what Zordon basically tried to do was back off, but also try to, like, I just got the impression he was wanting to rebuild Zach's confidence because Zach really lost confidence whenever Angela rejected him. As for Billy, giving him all those responsibilities when he noticed how Billy thrived on action and on overcoming hardship, maybe that's why he's like, all right, here's all the responsibilities.
You love a challenge, you get off on it.
Here you are. And hopefully this will rebuild your confidence.
And that's an aspect of Zordon. He had to make judgment calls regarding the individuals and determine.
Yeah.
It's like Zach, I want to teach him how to be confident with the girls.
But I got to back off from him.
I got to back off and let him fly from the nest.
Yeah, because Zach was ready to fly from the nest. Zach was ready. My picks would be either Rita, Zed, or Divatox, or even finally take out Goldar. Yeah, I guess Goldar would work.
Yeah, and I think Goldar would also make sense because of the constant rivalry. And I mean, many other Rangers physically fought Goldar and took him down. But Jason
never did.
There was a rivalry between Jason and Goldar, but it was never concluded.
I guess I wanted to see Goldar maybe humiliate, go, uh-oh, and run away after seeing Divatox die to Jason. But Goldar, yeah, there's a good argument to be made there.
Yeah, and with the entire green candle thing.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So either Goldar or Divatox.
Yeah. Zed, I always regarded as it would work better with Tommy and Rita. Just give it to Kim, like, because Rita dedicated her life to ruining Kim's life, like, for no reason. Mm-hmm. She was so petty and catty about it.
That would have been a great end episode, because I know other Power Ranger crossovers, they dealt with previous villains, like Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue had an episode with the Lost Galaxy Rangers fighting against
Drakina. Apparently the OG Drakina actress hated the way her character was killed off, and the way I don't agree with Drakina becoming a drug addict of sorts. But you know what? I actually like the idea of how she went down. She went down way better than Banshira. But I'll actually compliment Time Force for retconning it in that Viper was devouring the energies and powers of Banshira and the other villains from within. So that, honestly, it doesn't make sense that Banshira could even fight anymore because her powers are being devoured from within, which turns Viper into the main villain of 2 seasons almost.
So your idea were in Beast Morphers, Goldar coming back, and then Jason being there as well would have enabled us to conclude the final story arc with Jason that was left untold.
Yeah. But as to, just to get back on Zordon, it's interesting now, like, Billy thrusts more responsibility. Zach, he kind of touches with a needle to an extent. Trini, he seems to kind of back off. He tries to give her responsibilities, then backs off, unsure of himself. But then with Tommy, he really builds up tries to give him pep talks and just be utterly kind and supportive. Whereas with Kim, he seems to have mostly heart-to-heart talks with her, like a lot of heart-to-hearts. And like his style of fatherhood with each Ranger is very different. Like with Aisha, he's very strict and a little stern. Like in the episode where she goes crazy, like she goes crazy with power over the fire escape thing, it's interesting because it's almost subverting the Mary Sue concept. Because let's be honest, Aisha physically is, as a Ranger, like, as she fights like Jason or like Leo, she fights like those two. She's just an animal. She's a beast in a fight. I love her as a fighter. She's just, like, I'm just being honest. She's a bigger brute force physically than Jason and Leo in some ways. She can charge in on her own. She's clever. She's sly. But here's the thing. like Vulcan Skull hero worshiper. Kim adores her. Even Billy and Rocky and Adam, and even Tommy really respects and appreciates her. But the thing is, what happens when everybody hero worships her too much and gives her all this responsibility? She goes crazy. And I really like that they really like took Aisha and said, well, everybody appreciates her, flips it on its head and shows how it could go all wrong with her and how it could corrupt her. And that you have Zordon who scolds her, who tells her, this is your fault. This is on you. Own that. Here, you have to take accountability for this. And what I really like and what I find really great about Aisha is that she actually says, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. And when she says she apologizes, I think Zordon was like, okay. And I think she needed more stern hand. It's not that she's spoiled. It's just that Aisha is impressive as a person. She's like Chiaki Shinichi from No Dame Cantabile. She's talented at almost everything she puts her mind to. But the problem with such people is that sometimes they need humbling. But I'm not saying we should go around humiliating and breaking them. I'm just saying, I think Zordon realized, that could go wrong real quick. But he ends up still supporting her. He's very kind to her, but he's stern in some ways. Rocky, he's stern with initially, but from what I understand he does seem to entrust responsibility to Rocky. It's really interesting because a lot of characters early and middle, like in the early and middle part of when Rocky's first introduced, either like for the most part, they treat Rocky like he's Zack, like he's irresponsible. Like Zack was irresponsible at the start, but then he became but by episode 25 or something, he was so responsible. Whereas with Rocky, he seems even more irresponsible than Zack ever was. And I think that with Rocky, no one takes him seriously to begin with. But what I noticed was Tommy and Zordon immediately took him seriously. Which I say Tommy because remember from the word go, Tommy was like, all right, we're working out. And Tommy really got to know him and went, yeah, I'm not around. Kim's not around. I want him in charge half the time because, like he seems, well, it's not that he outright says it, but he does seem to entrust responsibilities and trust a judgment of Rocky. With it being Zordon, who seems to a few times basically treat Rocky as in charge of small teams, even sometimes over, I think, Billy and Adam, and at one point, I think even Aisha. So, and even Kim, I think in the episode where Aisha went a little nuts. So this does, in a way, doesn't seem like Zordon's treating Rocky a bit like Billy, rather than like Zack.
Maybe. And maybe a bit of a reversal of Trini, because as Trini pulled back, Zordon decided to give her less responsibility, not to overwhelm her, whereas Rocky is the reverse. He started where he didn't have as much responsibilities, and as time passed, Zordon decided...
Well, he kind of thrust a lot of responsibility on him after a little bit. Like, just, okay, here's all this responsibility. And then Rocky began to bloom.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he was like, okay, how do I approach him? But when Tommy was trusting Rocky more and more, he kind of went, okay, that's the way to go. Here's all the responsibility.
I'll trust Tommy's judgment on this one.
Whereas with Adam, it seems like, this might sound weird, but it's like he was treating Adam like he treated Kimberly. Heart to heart, really gentle. And I think it speaks to the fact that Adam was deep down, like, Adam's an interesting character. Like, I know Johnny Young Bosch has kind of complained about his Black Ranger era a few times. So we've mentioned it a few times on the channel. But Adam, before I get to Austin's doubtless great comment, Adam lacked confidence. And yet, the thing is, I think some of his lack of confidence comes from, this is something, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but Rocky and Aisha are good at almost everything they do. They're such geniuses in a lot of ways in martial arts, and they are brilliant. Like, as Rocky's not just a meathead, he can strategize. He keeps a level head where no one else does at times. And like when Aisha and Kim are panicking at one point, he remains calm. He's typically really calm. He's focused. He's a great strategist. Aisha is a brilliant tactician. She's the leader of the Stone Canyon Trio at first. She's great. And so maybe Adam's feeling overshadowed. Like, I'm not growing, but my two best friends have already outpaced me in life. They're outgrowing me. They know what they want to do with their futures. They are really brilliant martial artists. Whereas I struggle to talk to girls. I struggle to kind of keep up. But like in a few episodes, it seems like Adam thinks that he's holding them back. When Rocky and Aisha clearly don't think that. Rocky, like, because Rocky and Adam, you can almost look at them as being twin brothers. But it's just that Rocky's the exuberant extrovert that everyone notices, while Adam's the shy one who thinks that no one will ever notice him. And it's not that Rocky's bullying Adam, it's that Adam feels overshadowed in a way. And Rocky seems to be the best at trying to encourage Adam forward. But it seems like Zordon treats him almost like him, not like a girl, but just like, okay, I got to be nice to this kid because cool, and I can't be like stern. Weirdly, it's like he treats Aisha like a young boy. Like, I got to be stern with him. He needs some tough love. She needs some tough love her. Whereas with Adam, it's like, ooh, I got to go gentle with him. He's very sensitive. It's like, kudos to Zordon for being so psychologically aware of these kids. Totally agree with what you said about Aisha, bro. I wish her, Rocky, and Adam had more character development. I think they got a lot of it, but yeah, they could have used some more. Like, their personalities, it would have been awesome if she came back in Zio or Turbo. Yes! Yeah, I wish she came back as a Turbo Ranger, but I also, like, I'm caught because I really, really like Tanya. Like, Tanya's a great character. Like, I really like the chemistry between her and Adam. I also have to admit that, like, having seen these various interviews of the actress, she seems so nice. Because that's why I love the Boom comics. Well, I don't really like the Boom comics, but if you like them, good.
Mm-hmm.
I want an anime series of all the comics that came out and still coming out. Okay. Well, I'm going to be honest. I guess an anime would probably be able to do well for Power Rangers. I'd almost rather see a kind of Western animation TV series derived from, that's a bit of a sequel to the live action like series, but I don't know, like maybe going in a different direction. Because like the comics had a chance to go in a different direction. The live action has gone in one direction. So maybe we need an animation just to take it in an alternative direction. That way we got 3 different directions. And, you know, like we get to try out 3 different kind of universes. We get to do the Zelda thing and you get to decide, well, I prefer this timeline. And I don't know if that's a weird notion. Because like I talked to some people like who are into Zelda for our fantasy channel. And, you know, I mentioned like I kind of like the Fallen timeline or in some ways the child timeline the best because there's horror in child timeline and there's traditional epic fantasy in the Fallen timeline. Most prefer the adult timeline because it's where Breath of the Wild takes place, and kudos to them. It's just that age of exploration. Of the Wind Waker era stuff, I just found, yeah, okay, it's good. It's well written, but it's just not my cup of tea. But you see, that's the thing. Like, I tell them I prefer the other 2. And people go, okay, well, I prefer this one. Yeah, okay. And at no point have I met any fans that went, how dare you like that timeline? It's just everyone goes, well, I prefer this timeline or that timeline. So, like, Austin McNeil says, I prefer the Boom comics. Okay, sure. I prefer a live action TV series. But if we got a cartoon series of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Zeo, or even a sequel like carrying on the journeys and the arcs of the various characters after like Dino Thunder's era Dino Thunder era, we could see more of the characters. Or even maybe if they made they could do that, and then they can, if they continued, they took Mega Battles and turned that into or like a different kind of an adventure game or something, a la either Witcher or I don't know, Koei. You have now a video game universe. The only reason I'm in favor of the timeline is not like I've heard it said that if there's more timelines, you stop caring. Yes and no. That is a danger. That is a danger. I will concede that is a major danger. But on the other hand, for those who go, well, I don't know about this decision or that decision, you get to go with whichever direction you want. You get to say, well, I prefer this. But I'm massively in favor that all three should generally carry on with the same ideas. Like Dino Thunder still happens. Like you have to have Zeo come after Mighty Morphin. You can't go like, oh, well, I want to retcon out Mystic Force. No, you can't really do that. Like you can maybe change some of the details, but you can't just, like, for example, Boom Studios, I think, eventually went into space. Good. Don't go retconning out in space. Don't go retconning out. Okay, let me think. You know what, Mystic Force, because I'm not a fan of that season. I don't want it retconned out, because if you can retcon out Mystic Force, what comes next? Is the canary in the coal mine thing? Exactly my point, because I would love to see sequels to the live action series. Right idea. Yeah,
and it would also grant the animators more control over the fighting styles. For example, the problem with Power Rangers is the stock footage. And this would allow them to explore. For example,
I really like Aisha's fighting style.
Yeah, Tommy,
his is great.
If you take a look and notice, he always has the opening roundhouse kick.
Yeah.
That can remain consistent in an animated series.
But with an animated series, we could also examine what Tommy's life was like between Turbo and Dino Thunder. I would love to see that. I want to know what, like, I know he went on the archaeological dig, but I want to see what happened during the archaeological digs and what he was doing for Mesogog, and that, like, how he got manipulated into that, how he discovered the truth. Because I always kind of imagined him I've seen some fans say, wow, it looks like he was temporarily corrupted or something, or he was really dumb here. I prefer to think of it as he went for a Jonathan Harker thing, where he was tricked and then imprisoned. So essentially, it's about him having to bust out. And let's be honest, in that first episode of Dino Thunder, he's destroying the entire lab of Mesogog. And I really resent it when it's muttered, oh, well, everything that happened with Mesogog is Tommy's fault. No, Anton Mercer was mucking around with alien technology and stuff. He really wasn't supposed to. Tommy was trying to build Power Ranger abilities. Anton Mercer was basically creating Frankenstein monsters. It's basically Victor Frankenstein meets Jonathan Harker. They're going in two polar different directions. And yet somehow we got Tommy becoming known in some places as he's a little different from Victor Frankenstein. Where did you get that from? At no point are we laid into that. I don't know. But I don't know. For some reasons, people want to fall from grace story with Tommy to an extent, at least in that regard. But on the other hand, I want to see what happens to Kira after Dino Thunder. I really want to see her in action again. I really liked her character.
That's fair.
I also want to see TJ in action.
Oh, yeah.
Give him his own graphic novel and his own season of... Like, you could give almost every Ranger their own season or something with an animated series. Or if you go with a Koei style beat 'em up game, each character has like 20 missions. That's the beauty of those kind of games. You can play like 20 hours of every individual character in some of those games. So they each have these long, like 20-hour... it's like an entire movie or TV series about them. So if you do that for each individual character, and Koei specializes at that. So if you do that, we get all of that stuff for each character, and that's always great.
And giving Koei some writing liberties.
Yeah, they're always really good.
Yeah, they sometimes go into directions you don't expect, but they do try new things.
Yeah, they're always fun. But now
we're going back to Zordon.
yeah, but by the time of the end of season 2, Zordon has basically become daddy to everyone. It's pretty interesting that he quickly bonded with the Stone Canyon trio. And I mean, I want to know, Tommy missed out on Countdown to Destruction. Wouldn't he have helped defend his hometown? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, but yeah, because I'm making my own. Yeah, yeah. You had mentioned that in a previous stream, I think.
Would be curious to check out.
Yeah. But for one thing, like what I always, but with Zordon, what I also loved was how fearless he was, and how even when he was threatened by the Green Ranger, he was like, "I'm not afraid." He's more concerned for Tommy, and when it comes time for Tommy to become the White Ranger, I'm going to make the case that this is very important that Tommy be made White Ranger in place of Kim or Billy or Zach or Trini or Jason, because without the thing is, the Green Ranger abilities had basically become like the One Ring in a way. They had become more a burden that drags down Tommy, both psychologically and emotionally. And well, that's basically the same thing. Just sorry about that. But the White Ranger abilities was because the thing is, it is Rita who chose Tommy to be the Green Ranger. Tommy did not choose those powers, and they did not choose him. Whereas with Zordon choosing him to be the White Ranger, this is Zordon acknowledging Tommy as someone he would have chosen to be a Power Ranger if he had had a say in the matter. So it's something that takes essentially the violation of Tommy, but turns it into a acknowledgement, so yeah, it's a violation that Rita did, but here it turns it into a moment of strength. It's tearing away that violation and in place of it, giving him a core of strength. Well, not giving him a core of strength because Tommy already had one, but like it's a recognition of Tommy, acknowledgement that he has overcome the darkness. And given that it is the white light of good, bear in mind, the one who is the force of light within the morphing grid, on a metaphysical level, as Zed explains it, is Zordon. Zordon is the light to a large extent, or at least a great deal. He's what keeps the light strong, because Zed is pretty much the embodiment of the dark side of the morphing grid, the shadows within it, because there is a darkness within the morphing grid. So essentially, you have the constant battle between good and evil between Zed and Zordon. But I think that we should kind of look at the White Ranger abilities as almost as that light. And maybe what Zordon was doing was pouring it into Tommy, so that Tommy's kind of taking up Zordon's place within the morphing grid. And this is very important by the time of Dawn of Thunder, because we can clearly see that Tommy has had to step up after Zordon's death. So that, like, I just think that maybe this is Zordon starting to recognize he's got to pull back. Like, his end is coming in a few years. Like maybe he has a bit of foresight there, and he's got to choose an heir, and his heir is Tommy. And the thing about the White Ranger abilities is that this is Zordon pouring his essence into Tommy. Now, on a purely archetypal level, this is Zordon the father pouring his essence into the son. Like if you look at Jupiter and Heracles, or Othin and Sigurdur in the Nordic, or even Balder in the Nordic myths, Amatraz and Jimu. Yeah, you have the Judeo-Christian thing of Jesus and God, but you also have, you also have, I think it's, you got a lot of mythologies where you need you need that kind of father and son dynamic. I like the Green Ranger. Yeah, I'm not trying to bash the Green Ranger powers. I'm just saying
archetypally and mythologically, it was important to make the transition. However, the White Ranger was more powerful. Yeah. Do you really think the Green Powers could have withstood the fight with Zed when he had to go rescue Kimberly? No.
No.
Sadly not. Now
they were too unstable.
Yeah, I really like the Green Ranger look. I really like the powers.
And the history that led to Tommy.
Yeah, I really don't like criticizing or complaining because, like, I know in a few places we've been accused of being haters of the Green Ranger powers. I don't see it that way. I just see it as
it's an aspect of the story.
Yeah, and I think that the White Ranger abilities are more powerful because they're basically the divine abilities. Because, like, metaphysically, maybe we should do a series of streams soon discussing the metaphysics of what each of the powers represent. Because psychologically, I think it's been said once that yellow is the color of motherhood to an extent. Pink is femininity. And but if you look at it in Power Rangers like that, okay. But white, no matter what, is both it's deaf in Asia, but in the West, it's divinity. So if but deaf and divinity are interlinked no matter where you go. So you look at that, like, basically the Green Ranger powers had to die so that the White Ranger powers could come out, the stronger abilities could come out, I think. We have to look at things very archetypally because Power Rangers, the beautiful thing is that they've always followed archetypes and the hero's journey and whatnot. Every character is on a hero's journey. And Zordon is the mentor, but there's a reason he had to die eventually in space, because you can't have the mentor always there. And it's important that the heroes step up and grow without him. I think the Green Powers could hold up against Zed. If they were able to be stronger and more powerful, then yeah, I think Tommy could be able to take on Zed. That's fine. We'll disagree, or at least I'll disagree. But you know what? Later, Tommy uses the other abilities to prop up the Green Ranger abilities. He also does this thing where with the Master Morpher, he just uses all the abilities to support each other. So that basically all the abilities are essentially almost as powerful as each other with minor differences. But at that point, him going green makes sense because the powers are a lot more stable. And I would attribute that to the Master Morpher and to the balance Tommy's found between the powers and Dino Thunder. So at that point, yeah, I think he could probably put up a good... at that point, he could use the Green Ranger abilities to that kind of effect. But I think in the early days, we do have... And I do think even at that point, White might be better, but I'm a little biased towards the White Ranger abilities. But I tend to look at it as the whole Ninja Jetty thing and the white light of good. I guess I'm always looking at it because of those lines from Zordon about the white light of good and that they can never be corrupted or taken away from Tommy.
I know that one thing I was thinking about, for example, how Alpha chose the 5.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me thinks that maybe Alpha just did a rush. Okay, let's use the metaphysics of each of the colors, home in on 5 kids in Angel Grove that have that spirit, and bring them in.
Yeah.
Whereas, as time passed, Zordon was able to determine, okay, which ones need to leave due to personal issues and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And he was able to choose to mold new Rangers so that way...
Yeah,
they could fight a lot better. Before they were in a hurry to get people to face off against Rita, but as time passed, it's like,
okay, I have a question for you then. Would Zordon have chosen that exact team, according to you? Because Alpha rushed through the decision making, and Zordon went with it. If Zordon had gotten to choose directly, would you have chosen that exact team?
Okay. That's a very big philosophical question.
But I don't think he really objected to Alpha's choice.
No, and I think if given enough time, he might have chosen the same team
to start with, at least.
Exactly, because even if you prefer the Stone Canyon trio, Jason, Trini, and Zach all had their roles to play in the overall fight against evil.
Yeah.
And maybe they were there to
begin the fight.
And then once their time was up and they needed to go.
Okay, so that falls into the question of destiny with Power Rangers. Is there such a thing as destiny? To a loose extent. Like, bear in mind, when you bring in the philosophical concept of destiny, I'm not saying everything is already decided and predetermined. I tend to look at destiny as, like, that's the road ahead of you. You got, like, 5 different destinies. You got, like, 5 different choices. But you have to, once you go down the first few steps, you kind of do have to go down that path. You can't really double back. But it's like you got multiple choices here. Destiny's multiple choices, in my opinion. So that's where I wonder if, to an extent, there's a bit of the, like, were they destined for the ability in the predetermined sense? But then once they got it, were they destined to always hold it? I don't know. So, like, I just think that there should be nuance to the discussion of destiny and whatnot.
Yes, and maybe Trini, for example, part of her destiny was to help mentor Billy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
If we look at it that way, maybe Trini was meant to be a ranger even for a short time. She may have pulled away eventually.
Because Billy could not have become the great fighter and ranger that he was later without Trini.
And she would have she allowed the other rangers to truly get to understand who Billy was.
Yeah. Absolutely. As for the actual colors, in hindsight, yeah, I guess yellow would be motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. And pink is femininity and the female energy, because obviously it's always female Pink Rangers, and I don't think there should ever be a male Pink Ranger, because
same.
Yeah, but you look at black, it's always male, so that's probably the male energy. Green, though, can be female. Just to be clear, green and black are 2 different colors. Obvious, duh. Unless you're colorblind. I'm joking. Because I noticed that when characters get green, they do start to screw up a lot, and they muck around a little. Like Adam, when he became green, started messing around and almost more determined to show off to Tanya a few times. You have female Green Rangers that do show off a little, or some of them don't. I might almost argue that's almost more the normal human. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the normal average human. Because Tommy seemed like the normal average, like the person that normal people could relate to as a character. Maybe that's it. I haven't fully figured it out with green. Red's obviously passion, looking at color psychology. I guess green could be like the inexperienced one.
Yeah,
because at least on an emotional level or something, maybe.
Learning about one's own humanity.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe. But blue is obviously wisdom. In the classical sense, like, blue is wisdom, classically meant knowledge. Now, since then, the term has changed in definitions. This happens with language and linguistics, but maybe we should look at it both in the Nordic sense, like, of vast knowledges, but also in the context of today, like thinking with your head and your heart at the same time. So that Billy has vast knowledges, but also can think with his heart and his head. So
you have Rocky that turns out that way. You've got TJ.
But it's also very interesting that red and blue are often, like, characters jump between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things about the Power Ranger energy morphing grid stuff that I just find fascinating. And yeah, we're definitely going to have to at some point do some streams and some videos all about the morphing grid, because the morphing grid is just bonkers interesting. It's just,
yeah, and what each color
represents. But also, like, I wonder if maybe the more you embody that theme or that idea with the energy, maybe the more powerful you become with it. Because like you look at Cassie and Kim, they're very, very feminine. I don't think there's almost any ranger who's more feminine than those two.
Yeah, and generally
But on the other hand, is there any ranger who's more masculine than Tommy and Dino Thunder or Zach as Black Ranger? Or like deep down, Adam is very masculine, for example, even at the time of season 2, because like a lot of what he aspires to is chivalry. Like Gawain, like remember the Renaissance answer, he said it's much more romantic. But if you look at romance, it's not just man and woman, it's also the medieval sense of chivalry, living up to that male ideal. So maybe like the more masculine you are, the more powerful you are as a Black Ranger. Maybe the more passionate you are, the stronger you are as a Red Ranger.
I think the closest one that might come to Tommy and that sense of masculinity, I think might be Mikey from Lost Galaxy. But he's not close to Tommy in that sense.
Well, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. You see why we do these streams? New ideas come up. But tell us what you think of the idea with the metaphysics and how it works. Because there is some color psychology that to be found within the Power Ranger colors. And it's really interesting how powered up the characters eventually become. Like remember that Earth smash thing, like that Hulk does? Like he smashes the Earth and it shakes up and everyone's sent flying like a bunch of bowling pins. Rocky does that in one episode. Like powers up his fist, smashes the ground, and you got Rita's and Finster's monsters from the previous season that are sent flying back, and some of them defeated, and Rocky's cackling like a lunatic. But like with Rocky, I don't like. I know some people would say, well, he's not the most passionate character in comparison to say Jason or TJ. But then when you look at him in the movie, he really gets like when Zordon is when they find out Zordon is dying, like in universe, he doesn't really joke around after that. He's the one pushing the team. We got to hurry. Zordon's life's in danger a few times. And it's, anyways, that's its own topic. But I wonder if, given that Zordon probably knows about this color site, maybe just to tie in the metaphysics with now real quick. And I think white is just simply, like I said, light. So it's everything good. Like the thing is about the divine is that the idea in the Campbellian and Jungian sense is that it embodies everything that's human, like male, female, because it ascends above these concepts. And because like when you're a guy, you have a male energy. When you're a woman, you have a female energy in terms of metaphysical theories in real life. So, and I've even seen some French Catholics argue that dogs have their own metaphysics, horses have their own. And so recently there was this massive, in French, Catholic debate, and it was a very explosive thing where you had like people arguing about whether these animals have souls and what are their metaphysical energies, what are they like? And it led to apparently 3 weeks or 3 months or something of endless heated debates, and people were throwing things at each other over it. And it might seem really funny, but on the other hand, some of the arguments posited were fascinating. And I only paid attention to a few, but I want to go back and watch those videos and research those papers because like it's a fascinating topic. But if you look at the divine, like as Campbell said, it embodies everything from the passionate, from the mother, from the father, from the son, like from being a man, from being a mother, from being an artist. All that is encapsulated in the divine because the divine is beyond mortal comprehension. And that's basically the white light that Zordon kind of embodies. In a way, Zordon is a god, but he's not. He's an alien god of sorts, but more in the angelic, beneficial sense, not in like the Greek mythology or the Judeo-Christian mythological sense. He's basically alien daddy. And
to use a Tolkienian comparison, instead of being like Iluvatar, he's much more like Gandalf.
Yeah, like I said earlier. Yeah. I also think that with
Because girls can like boy things too.
Yeah. And what's the previous comment that he made?
Oh, I didn't even see that. And what you guys are, I hear what you guys are saying. Oh yeah, sorry for not noticing this earlier. I thought it was the same comment for a moment. My bad. That's why in Power Rangers Brand New World, Trini is going to be a tomboy. She's still going to like. Okay, I'll actually say my advice would be keep the characters' personalities to what they are. Don't go changing it too much away from what they are at their core. Because if you start changing the characters from what they are at their core, they stop being those characters.
Maybe focus on an aspect of Asian femininity.
Well, yeah, but there's also the fact that Trini is into martial arts. Maybe focus on that side of her.
Mm-hmm. And she loves the meditative side to it.
Yeah, yeah. She's very zen, so maybe focus on that side. If you want, in terms of sports that she might like, because I've been to Japan, for example, and Trini's not Japanese, but in Asia, some girls will practice archery and swordsmanship, not to learn to fight, but more for the meditative side, because it's very meditational the way they teach you to do it. And I've actually, like, I'm going to be honest, like doing some Iaido, some sword kind of dancing from Japan, it's very, very spiritual. Like I've never felt a greater sense of spiritual peace and balance than when I was swinging that sword a few times. So that would be my advice on the writing. Like approach it, bear in mind the Asian thing.
Hey,
burned oils. I think it is, unless my eyesight's failing me.
No.
Oh yeah, just had to max the screen. Heyo, how are you, burnt oils? By the way, nice flag. Are you two going to do Ramadan? What? Very healthy to do. Okay, healthy for your mind. Oh, I didn't know that. No, I probably won't, but it's only because I'm gonna be running around like a chicken with its head chopped off soon. Doing great, and yes, we love our America. That's the, I recently heard it said that the thing that's funny about Americans is how utterly shameless they are about their love for their country and whatnot. And although I also heard the person was English, and then he said the French are the same way as are the who was it? There was another culture that was mentioned. I think it was the Mongolians. Like the Mongolians, the Americans, and the French are all so shameless about their country. And honestly, I think that that's a good thing. Like you should be passionate about and love your country, just because if you loving your country is basically loving your neighbor and loving yourself in a way. If you reject it, you're rejecting a part of yourself. That said, I do understand if people are like, yeah, these are the things I don't like about my country. I want to move countries. That's fine too.
And I suppose that kind of passion is why a lot of Red Rangers, they want to protect what they love so much.
Oh, you're tying it back into Power Rangers. Okay.
To the point where, for example, Jason was getting carried away. You've got Leo that really got into fighting.
Okay, so here's my counter to you. So is this why Red Rangers go to blue? Because they gotta represent those two American colors?
Yes,
blue.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm joking.
I mean, Tommy has yet to go blue.
Well, but Dan, once you go black, you can never go back. As Walter Jones has said. It's Walter Jones who said that.
That's fair.
Oh man, I love Walter Jones. He's probably the funniest Ranger actor. Like the dude just has the best sense of humor of all the actors. Him and GDF had, GDF also had a great sense of humor. But as to, Zordon obviously chose these Rangers based on, or him and Alpha obviously chose them based on the metaphysicals thing. I do wonder if maybe part of the reason Zordon had to leave in Turbo was because, he gave too much energy to the White Ranger powers to an extent, and he needed to recover.
because that is part of his essence.
Yeah.
He tore from himself and put it into Tommy. So what does that mean for Zordon?
He lives through Tommy and the
Yeah,
Rangers.
yeah, okay. I know he's Mufasa, but like what I mean is, did this somehow? What does this inflict on Zordon? Like, does it weaken him? That's my point. But Canadians are very proud of their country. Nothing wrong with national pride. Yeah. I've seen. Well, yeah. Typically most Canadians I've met are. It's more about their province, like. But we don't have the same. Well, except for the Quebecois, they're utterly shameless about it. I actually really appreciate that about them. But most of the Canadians are like, okay, yeah, we're very proud of our country, but we're quiet about it. Whereas the Americans next door are just loud and obnoxious. But I actually think it's funny. But it's something I do appreciate about the U.S. because the Americans were shameless about it and go, USA. It's like, you're so shameless. But okay, sure, that's fine. Like, never going to criticize that because you're taking pride in what you are and who you are to an extent. That being said, another thing I just noticed about Zordon is if Tommy's the son, and Zordon's the father, like if we look at because in female archetypal psychology, you have the mother or the crone, the daughter, and the lover. You have this triangle. Maybe if we flip it and we look at the male the same way, you have the father, you have the son, and Tommy's also the lover, the male lover. So we have, in a way, so do we have the same triangle, I wonder, to an extent?
That's fair.
Be worth a few theses on the topic. I'm actually going to meet Zach at the Fateville Con on April 21st to the 23rd. Oh, you are so fortunate, my friend. And it's also before my 30th birthday, so it's going to be so more phenomenal. Well, happy 30th birthday, my good sir. I passed that landmark in life almost 2 years ago now.
I know a while back on one of my birthdays, I went to a Comic-Con. I got Stan Lee's autograph on my birthday.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Walter Jones, though, he's one of those Ranger actors you're like, oh, I want to meet. Just because he seems like such a fun guy.
Yeah, a guy you want at the barbecue.
Yeah. If anything, I would recommend Mr. McNeil, bring your brand new world script and have him autograph that. I'm somewhat teasing, but that would give it even more legitimacy. I'm teasing there. But yeah, very good for you. And well, happy birthday, my friend. Happy birthday. Not that I am Canadian. Yeah. Now that I think about it, actually, a lot of Canadians tend to say, well, we're better than the US because we have this or that or this. Like this competition thing. It's like, oh, we define ourselves by not being American. It's like, yeah. But that's the English Canadians. The French Canadians are more like, nous sommes meilleurs. Pourquoi? Nous sommes français. We're better. Why? Because we're French. But it's like the French are almost like we're better than even the English Canadians. Why? Because we're French. There's this weird competition. I'm actually turning 25. My birthday date is the 30th. Oh, okay. I misunderstood. Okay. I misunderstood.
Wow.
Okay. Happy 25th birthday, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
I misunderstood. Sorry about that. But yeah, happy birthday. 25 years old. Wow. I remember my 25th. That's a few years back. Obviously, you're probably spending honestly, you're probably wiser at 25 than I was. I'm just being honest. I was not very bright at that age. So kudos to you. Also, kudos to you for being wise enough to go, okay, I'm going to celebrate my birthday by meeting Walter Jones. Man, I probably had that. Like if I had half the wisdom of Mr. McNeil here, at 25, I would have just gone, like when you dragged me to the convention one time or something, I would have, because we were able to go to conventions back then, I would have probably gone like, you know what, let's go to one and meet GDF.
Mm-hmm.
But too late. That was dumb of me. I'm definitely telling him about my ideas for Power Rangers and brand new. Hope he likes it. Oh, he probably will.
Yeah.
Awesome. Stanley was great. Oh yeah, I liked how they gave him brief cameos in Marvel movies. Oh, those were hilarious. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I wish he was still around, so that part of me wishes they also did this, where they would record him and then slip him in digitally into 1995 Power Rangers, just so that, like, like you might have him like looking up from the newspaper or something as you have the Defamorphican marching by. That's such a, like, it's those sort of cameos I really liked in some of those early Marvel movies and whatnot, and X-Men movies. But and if he had lived long enough to be in Legend of the White Dragon, I bet you that given how close him and GDF were, he'd have gotten himself a cameo in there. But yeah, he was a really fun guy. He basically carried on his shoulders the entire North American comic book scene and superhero franchise.
Yeah,
not franchise, but like genre. He even carried the weight of DC at one point, I would argue. That being said, I don't know if I was thinking for a minute about that, but I can't remember. I'm so tired today. But as for Zordon, just real quick to get into the movie, it's interesting how he's depicted in a way where he is weakened, whereas in the show he's always confident and strong. So that I kind of think that maybe before anyone should ever watch the 95 movie, they should watch the first 2 seasons, because you get to see what Zordon's like. Then you see in that movie, after Ivan Ooze does whatever ungodly things he does to him off screen, you become, when he says there's no hope, the powers are gone, you get a good, you can see the effect that Ivan has had on Zordon, and you can understand the depth and of Ivan Ooze's depravity, and it adds scope, I think. Me too, Rob. That man was a real legend, and him being in Power Rangers would have been so awesome. Yes.
Can you imagine, instead of what's her name that came after Zordon? Can you imagine if it was Stan Lee?
Oh God,
that wasn't that giant.
Oh my gosh, they should have totally done that. I mean, they got his wife to play Madame Web in the Spider-Man cartoon. She was a perfect voice actress.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I wish she did more voice acting stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I love that Mary Jane and Peter's first meeting was based off of his first meeting with his wife.
Oh yeah. I don't know if she said that Face the Tiger, you hit the jackpot thing. I don't know if she did. Did she?
No. It was him that came to her door, and he fell so much in love with her that he got on one knee and proposed to her.
Then in there?
Yeah.
Well, she was a supermodel. So, yeah.
She just had to divorce her husband, but then again, they were already separated.
Yeah, so they were basically already divorced for all intents and purposes. See that movie, Legend of the White Dragon, looks so good.
Yeah.
That's why the other day I had to release the quick 2-minute video saying this is the release date. It's on Labor weekend, and thereabouts, and
we are going to watch and review that movie.
I may not be in North America because I'm moving, mostly for a 3-month job training, but I don't know where I'll be after that. But if I end up back here, I'm definitely going to see it in theaters here. I'm hoping it'll be popular enough to warrant being sent overseas so that I can see it in theaters, because I want to get that theater experience watching Legend of the White Dragon, because I really want to do that, because I really want to honor GDF that way. But man, like, that movie looks so good. Every once in a while I love to pop the trailer back on. The thing about that movie is that outside of Korean and Japanese movies, we've generally been starved of good movies in the past 10 years. That being said, there are some great ones that came out of Europe, like Britain and even Portugal, that I've seen. But like the Night Train to Lisbon, and Robert the Bruce from 2019 are two great films. One of them has Angus McFadden and the other one has Jeremy Irons. These are great films in the past 10 years. I'd say on par with Shawshank, but it's not many films that are that great. And I think Legend of the White Dragon is going to be this great experience.
So if it comes by to a theater near me, if it comes out, I'll see if I could try and watch it. But if it doesn't, then
yeah, we're gonna have to watch it online if that's the case, sadly. But we'll see what happens. I absolutely cannot wait to see that movie.
That makes 3 of us.
Yeah. Spider-Man 90s cartoon was great. Oh yeah. Fox Kids was the only place to see Batman the Animated Series, Spider-Man, X-Men, and Power Rangers. Yeah.
I really enjoyed those 90s cartoons
and Power Rangers.
Yeah, and I'm still a big superhero buff today, although
I'm not.
Yeah,
I used to be, but I used to be a Star Wars nerd, but then I stopped like 14 years ago, or 15 years ago, I should say now. Wow, it's been a while.
There's a reason why.
The only one I've clung to is Power Rangers.
Yeah, there's a reason why I really like Dwayne McDuffie's work.
Yeah, he did great work on Justice League and Static Shock.
Oh, Static Shock.
Yeah, but I think, well, we're moving away from discussing Zordon, but I think we've generally semi-exhausted the topic for now.
Yeah.
For now, there might be a future Zordon stream if ever people want that and whatnot. I don't mind touching upon older topics every once in a while. I don't mind that. But
yeah.
But next week will be Kimberly Hart, which that's going to be exciting.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of pink energy.
Too much pink energy is dangerous. I love that line. Zordon, one of Zordon's greatest lines. But thematically, I guess too much female energy like that, so that there's no room for any other energy, can be dangerous, just as like in the reverse. You can't have too much of one energy. So that does make sense. We need more martial arts movies.
Yeah,
that's true, I guess.
It's fallen out of favor, and we've had a lot of superhero movies.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a good kung fu movie would be nice.
Yeah. I'd love maybe another take on Journey to the West or something.
Or another Big Trouble in Little China.
That would be even better. I love that movie. That was John Carpenter, I think it is, his greatest film, in my opinion. We sure do. Yeah. But after Kimberly, I'm thinking we're going to touch on the Stone Canyon Trio, but we might have to skip a week or so because I'm going to be flying off elsewhere in the world, and I'm going to need to. Well, I'm going to be on a plane around Sunday after the Kim stream. So the week after that, I'm going to be on a plane. So we'll see where things are at, and we'll try to figure out another date if we have to for streaming Power Rangers. We'll see. And because we're going to continue the channel, because of course.
Yes.
But it's just I'm going to be on a plane that week. So
it'll take once you're established there, and
we're definitely going to have to do streams from 2 different locations.
Yeah, timing and whatnot.
Now, for those who might be concerned about what does this mean for videos and whatnot, don't worry. We've got the next More Phenomenal reviews, which is going to be the season 2 overall review. Then we've got the movie review, and we do have a few shot-for-shot analysis videos recorded. We've got all of season 3 recorded. It's just I have to edit these videos. I have to edit, and this does take quite a bit of time on top of all the fantasy stuff on the other channel. So what it means is I've got a lot of content to get through for the next few months until my job training ends and I get to start on the new job. Well, guys, I'm going to go. I'll see you guys next time. May the power protect. Yeah, you too.
Yeah. And give a word to
Walter Johnson
for us.
Yeah, tell him hi. Yeah, that's so great. I'll be honest, part of me almost wishes he would be in Asia when I'm there, just so that I could go, hey, but most of the Ranger actors don't really go to Asia. I think they've gone to Japan or Korea a few times, but generally they stick to the European, to Europe, Africa, and North America, I think, and sometimes South America, from what I've observed. And kudos to them for traveling all over, but they mostly stick to certain areas, which I get that. You want to be safe, and you also want a quick 7-hour flight and back, not be on a plane for like 40 hours and whatnot, and because your body starts to really take some damage to an extent. Not damage, but like you get exhausted. Anyways, well, yeah, we'll do. Thank you, and do take care. Have yourself a great time, and we'll see everyone hopefully next week with our Kimberly stream, which is going to be a blast.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, too much pink energy is dangerous. I couldn't resist.